Assalamu alaikum. My name is Sami and today I'll be presenting on the satellite internet access along with Arslan and Shazaib. So, satellite internet access is, as the name suggests, the internet access provided through communication satellites. Modern consumer-grade satellite internet service is typically provided to individual users through geostationary satellites that can offer relatively high data speeds. The three primary components of the system are a satellite, a number of ground stations, which are called gateways, and the antenna dish and modem at the subscriber's location. The satellite, being marketed as the center of new broadband satellite networks, are positioned about 35,000 kilometers above the equator. These new purpose-built satellites are designed and optimized for broadband applications, employing many narrow spot beams, which target a much smaller area than the broad beams used by earlier communication satellites. This spot beam technology allows satellites to reuse assigned bandwidth multiple times. Along that, a bent pipe architecture is employed, in which the satellite functions as a bridge in space, connecting two communication points on the ground. Some famous companies like Starlink employ laser communication equipment for high throughput. The second we have are the gateways, which are basically the ground stations on Earth. They receive radio wave signals from the satellite, which carry the request originating from the end user's site. The satellite modem at the gateway location demodulates the incoming signal from the outdoor antenna into IP packets and sends the packets to the local network. Each gateway provides the connection to the internet backbone for the gateway beam it serves. Finally, we have the antenna dish and modem, which is further divided into the outdoor unit and the indoor unit. The outdoor unit consists of the antenna, which must have an unobstructed view of the sky to allow for proper line of sight to the satellite. The main parts include the feed, which includes the feed horn that has the task of focusing the satellite microwave signals across the surface of the dish reflector. The next is the block up converter, whose job is to convert the signal from the modem to a higher frequency and amplify it before it is reflected off the dish and towards the satellite. Lastly, there is the low noise block down converter, whose job is to amplify the received signal, satellite radio signal, bouncing off the dish and to filter out the noise. The indoor unit serves as the interface between the outdoor unit and the customer equipment, such as their personal computer. It has two types of connectivity: the coaxial cable, which carries the electromagnetic signals, satellite signals between the modem and the antenna, and the Ethernet, which carries the customer's data packets to and from the internet content servers. Now I would like to hand over the presentation to Arslan, as he will speak about the challenges and limitations faced by the satellite internet access. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Arslan and my topic is challenges and limitation of satellite internet access. So the first challenge we face in the communication is this latency. Latency in the two-way communication is the delay between requesting data and receiving its response. And the latency in the one-way communication is the delay between signal broadcast and the time it received at its destination. Now the latency in the radio signal for geostationary satellites. Geostationary satellites communication account for approximately 550 milliseconds of latency round trip. It is 12 times higher than that the terrestrial based network. The satellites in different orbits. First of all, geostationary satellites. Most of our communication and weather satellites are in geostationary orbit. Latency of geostationary satellites. The geostationary satellites communication experience higher latency due to signal having to travel 36,000 km to the satellite in geostationary orbit and back to Earth again. So its latency is approximately 1000 to 1400 milliseconds. Well, how to reduce latency? We cannot eliminate the latency because of the distance, but we can reduce it with the help of TCP acceleration. It reduces the round trip time by splitting the feedback loop between sender and receiver. Now the next challenge is security. Latency also impacts the initiation of secure internet connections such as SSL. Well, SSL is a transport layer protocol which requires to exchange the numerous pieces of data between web server and web client. Although these pieces of data are small, the multiple round trips involved in handshake produce long delays compared to other form of internet connectivity. Many TCP protocols are not designed for high latency. Now talk about the medium and low Earth orbit satellites. Now, first of all, medium Earth orbit satellite. Well, take an example. O3b is medium Earth orbit satellite. Its latency is 125 millisecond round the trip, and its throughput is 1 GB per second, and it is 8,000 km above the Earth. Now, the low Earth orbit Globestar is one of the low Earth orbit satellite, and its latency is 40 milliseconds per round trip. Their throughput is 64 KB per second. It is around 1400 km above the Earth. Now, the communication with low Earth orbit or medium Earth orbit satellites. There are three ways we can communicate with the satellites. First one is completely omnidimensional ground antennas capable of communicating with one or more satellites visible in the sky at the same time. The second one is motorized antenna mount with high gain, narrow beam antenna tracking individual satellites. And the third one is phased array antenna that can steer the beam electronically together with software that can predict the path of each satellite in the constellation. Now, the third challenge we face is the interference. Satellite communication are affected by moisture and various other factors, such as rain, snow, in the signal between the users and the ground station and the satellite being utilized. This interference with the signal is called the rain fade. The effects are less pronounced with the lower frequencies such as L and C band, but can quite serve on a higher frequencies such as Ku and Ka band. Now, the line of sight. An object is in the line of sight if you can draw a straight line between you and the object without any interference, such as mountain, or a bend in a road. An object beyond the horizon is below the line of sight, and therefore it is difficult to communicate with it. So now I am going to hand over the presentation to Shazaib School to talk about communication. Thank you so much.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Shazaib and today I will be talking about the two-way satellite-only communication in satellite internet access. VSAT, otherwise known as Very Small Operator Terminals. Home or consumer-grade two-way satellite internet service involves both sending and receiving data from remote, very small operator terminal VSATs via satellite to a hub telecommunication port, otherwise known as a teleport, which then relays the data via the internet. The arrangement of satellites is very necessary in this way of communication. The satellite dish at each location must be precisely pointed to avoid interference with other satellites. At each VSAT site, the uplink frequency, bitrate, and power must be accurately set under the control of service provider hub. There are several types of two-way satellite internet services, including time division multiple access (TDMA) and SCPC, otherwise known as single channel per carrier. Two-way systems can be simple VSAT terminals with 60 to 100 cm dish and output power of only a few watts, intended for consumers and small businesses, or large systems which provide more bandwidth. Such systems are frequently marked as the satellite broadband. Another issue with this communication is it is extremely expensive, where it can cost about 2 to 3 times more than ADSLs, and only the modem that is required for this kind of communication can cost within 600 to 2000 US dollars. Afterwards, the bandwidth. As discussed before, it is a really expensive kind of communication. So the home users tend to use shared satellite capacity to reduce its cost. There are usually restrictive time-based bandwidth allowances so that each user gets their fair share according to their payment. When a user exceeds its allowance, the company may slow down their access or charge for the excess bandwidth they use. For consumer satellite internet, the allowance can typically range from 200 MB per day to 25 GB per month. A shared download carrier may have a bit rate of 1 to 40 megabits per second and be shared by up to 100 to 4000 end users. Time Deviant Multiple Access (TDMA). The uplink direction of for shared user customers is normally TDMA, which involves transmitting occasional short packet bursts in between other users, similar to how cellular phones are connected to cellular towers. Unique Project. In 2006, the European Commission sponsored the Unique Project, which aimed to develop an end-to-end scientific test bed to reduce the cost of two-way satellite to access end users. The Unique architecture employs DVB-S2 for downlink and DVB-RCS for uplink. Afterwards, the portable satellite internet. Uh, the portable satellite modems are usually in shape of a self-contained flat rectangular box that need to be pointed in the general direction of the satellite. Unlike VSAT, the alignment need not to be very precise, and the modems have built-in signal strength meters to help the user align their device properly. The modems commonly have connectors such as Ethernet ports and USB ports. Some of them even have an integrated Bluetooth where they can act double as a satellite phone. INMAR SATs BGAN is a common system. These terminals are about the size of a briefcase and have near symmetric connection speed of around 350 to 500 kilobits per second. Small modem exist, but the issue with them is they only connect at 444 kbps in a limited converged area. Using such modems is also an expensive way of communication. Data transfer costs between $5 to $7 per megabyte, and modems themselves are also expensive, usually costing between 1,000 to 5,000 American dollars. Internet via satellite phones. The satellite phone is really common these days. For many years, satellite phones have been able to connect to the internet. They usually use a dial-up connection, which is billed per minute, and have really low bandwidth, which can be about 2400 bits per second. The good thing about this kind of portable satellite internet is that uh, as the satellite phones have omnidirectional antennas. No alignment is required as long as there is a line of sight between phone and satellite. This is all about how the communication occurs and how the communication and the transfer of internet and data occurs through satellites. Thank you.